The deceptions of intellectualism. Every experience of recovery from something that has ruined our lives ultimately arises from discovering our spiritual side. Whether overcoming alcoholism, drug addiction, or emotional trauma, the only solutions that work are the ones which lead us to those spiritual qualities which drive the human will. Yet too many people are ready to cave in when they hear some expert dismiss spiritual concepts. People will assume someone speaks from knowledge because of the way that person looks or speaks, or by their association with people or institutions we have been trained to esteem. But the only evidence of a concept's truth is that it produces a better life. A food which produces illness is clearly seen as a toxin, but thoughts which reduce our ability to live well and free of depression are not so readily seen as being poisonous to life. Among intellectuals, ideas are argued against only to prove that argument is possible. It's done for sport. There is no genuine curiosity about the truth of a matter. They evaluate intelligence by a person's ability to produce questions. They view answers and conclusions as prejudice and assumption. This is why they will spend their lives creating questions for each other and never give a damn about the truth. What they always overlook in arguments of a metaphysical nature is that words are never the items they endeavor to describe. The best crafted assertion or refutation is only an attempt to lure another mind into letting down its guard with this sizzle so that it will buy the stake of acquiescence. Any concept can be wrapped up in a neat package of words, no matter how scatterbrained it is. If the words and style ring familiar to these word addicts, they will emotionally embrace it as categorically intellectual. People become hypnotized by the structure of words and the eloquence of an argument. They wish to identify with the prestige of the verbal attire donning the idea. They don't care whether the idea will hold its own when in the absence of the intellectual cheerleaders. Their point becomes valid when someone agrees with them. This is their litmus test, and it gratifies them. But for the rest of us, we have to think about what will happen when the theory is tested out between man and reality. When we experience failure, reality doesn't listen to our arguments of things weren't supposed to work out this way. The greatest realities of life will never be experienced intellectually. Our intellect is not the power which drives us to action. Our intellect can be thoroughly convinced of the logic behind the idea of our losing weight, yet leave us acting in complete contradiction to it. The intellect is the servant and not the master of the more elementary part of us. It is only that which is impressed upon our spirit which compels us to act. The intellect is held in esteem by some because it can be controlled by others. But the spirit repels intrusive influences. This is why it is portrayed as a vestige of myth by those who desire to control other people. The intellect can be trained to welcome a lie when it is attached to the promise of our being accepted by those we look up to. It is an instrument designed to be a slave to our spirit. It has been assigned the practical, mundane function of organizing the affairs we confront as a part of our survival mechanism. It is a dumb machine. It is not our spiritual fountainhead. But when this arrangement is reversed and our spirit is placed in subjugation to our intellect, the sublime perceptions of our spirit die of neglect. When we pay honor to an intellect because it performs the greatest quantity of mental contortions and recitations of lifeless data, in a most profound way, dishonor is accorded to our spirit. By doing this, we have chosen our masters. We have trivialized the very part of us which sustains our life, aspires to joy, and inspires our will to live. We have divorced ourselves from the source of eternal wisdom and embraced the source of eternal doubt. We are left wholly ungrounded and completely at the mercy of the conflicting currents of popular thought. The intellectual manipulators who boisterously tout their pet theories will never have the displeasure of having to place their own lives at the mercy of the truth or falsehood contained therein. Words to them are merely game pieces, and the outcome of the game will have no deleterious effect on them either way. Yet the admirers of these swine draw their validation solely from what their chosen lords deem to be intellectually chic, rather than by the workability of their hypotheses. This ends in a form of madness in which they spend life putting more and more effort into attracting less and less support from their intellectual idols. They stand proudly arrayed in an insanity which arises from living exclusively within the confines of their private world of well-articulated fantasies. What else could more securely place a group of people in control than for them to hypnotize millions of fools into competing with each other for nothing more than receiving recognition from that group? Such a chasing of the wind is a natural consequence of our placing greater value on others than on ourselves and the intuitive process.